Snapshot 24W33A is out. It's for Minecraft 1.21.2, and this means that we're getting another minor update jammed full of content before 1.22 drops. This one comes with over 200 bug fixes and also some sort of hint at a password. I can't help but feel this might be a joke or a secret message. But it turns out Mojang have been busy over the summer, and some of the content in this snapshot is actually experimental, meaning that we don't know what update it's actually going to be a part of, so that's the stuff that we're going to cover first to make it really clear. So we're going to create a new world, and when doing that, we're going to go into the Experiments tab to enable this content. There are changes to bundles, minecarts are being worked on, and there's some massive changes to Redstone too. And if you're wondering, nothing has changed with the villager trade rebalancing. Now the goal here is to make vehicle travel like minecarts a viable option for players compared to other late game options which currently dominate most playstyles. We are of course talking about the elytra and firework rockets. So the goal is to make riding minecarts a smooth experience with consistent and predictable motion and rotation. They are aware these changes can break some existing contraptions, which is why they want to collaborate with us, the community, to shape the nature of these changes. So let's take a look at some of this. Most of it is observational to begin with, as the smoothness and consistency of these minecarts will probably reveal themselves more in survival gameplay. But on first impressions, this does appear to be quite slick and consistent. Now, when it comes to a minecart falling through the air, they've added in a little animation thing here where it sort of tilts forward as it falls downwards. It also doesn't make that rail sound when it falls off the top. And if it goes up with more speed, it will travel further, and the animation is really nicely done. There is even a little bit of tilt right as it lands again, which is cool. So tell me what's different about this. I get in the minecart and yes, my screen is turning with it. This is thanks to an accessibility setting that is only available when this experimental pack is enabled to rotate with the minecart. It's actually off by default. And I like that you can change this as a player choice. This might make some sort of like AFK farming inside of a minecart a little more viable if you can use both options. Other changes include the removal of being able to stack minecarts either as the player or a dispenser. When I right click on this rail, it looks like I'm doing something, but there's still only one minecart there. This can be overcome though just by stacking them vertically. We can even see the shadow over there getting darker with each minecart. So this is something that might disappear possibly. Minecarts can also be placed consistently on tracks next to one another. If you ever done this before, as soon as you put down that second one, usually they start nudging each other, but here they're quite consistent and stay on their own spot. Now here's where things get fun. There is a new game rule called Minecart Max Speed, and its default is 8, but its maximum is 1000. And this number represents blocks per second. So I think it's a game rule at the moment so that players can experiment and give feedback on what they think the optimal speed is. I do not think that 1000 is it. Is that going to pick up enough speed? I forgot to press the button, didn't I? Okay, there it goes. Oh my God. I think it's still accelerating. Do I dare get inside of it? I'm clicking. Oh no, it's terrible. I regret. No, I spoke too soon. Now I'm definitely going to regret. Why do I do this to myself? All right, here we go. Off into the distance. For 1000 blocks a second, I thought that was going to go a lot further away. By the way, mobs are supposed to be easier to get into minecarts now. Again, trying to do this in survival is going to be the real test, but it does seem like they snap in there quite easily. Okay, we've had our fun. Those were the minecart changes. Remember that all of this is subject to change and that Mojang are looking for our feedback to help them make the right decisions. The same is true of these experimental redstone changes, which currently seem to focus on the redstone wire. It's been improved so that its performance impact on the game has drastically been reduced. And as a result of that, the way in which it updates blocks has now been changed, as this changing redstone wire doesn't provide a block update over here. It would have to point directly into the piston in order to do that now. And I guess if you're not aware of quasi power, this might not make too much sense to you, but this would receive an update and create a pulse like so. Now the redstone wire is only going to provide block updates to the blocks that actually receive power from the redstone wire. And before any updates are caused, the signal strength of all of the dust is going to be set and then provide updates in that particular order. So this means the highest signal strength here will provide an update before the one over there, so that you get this behavior, but if the lever was in a different position, then it's the one on the other side that gets powered. And if you have one in the middle, well, it gets powered at random, but that's not like a predefined random, that's a random in the moment, so it can be either one of these that gets powered. I must say, it does feel like the same one just powers over and over again sometimes. Now the aim here is to make the wire consistent regardless of its position or orientation, and to make the order of block update events deterministic. But as it says here, if there's not enough context to fully determine its order, then it's going to be done at random. And they acknowledge that randomness in Redstone is usually unwanted, but they'd rather have a random behavior over a secretive, difficult to understand one. So these changes look good for performance and consistency. However, it's probably going to break a lot of existing methods for using redstone and contraptions and such. But I say let's not be afraid of change. With more iterations, this could go in a really good direction. Next up, bundles. They are back with a fancy new texture and new functionality, which I think is really starting to improve these. But best of all is probably its new crafting recipe. So previously you needed rabbit hide, now just a single piece of leather and string. That makes it very easy to access early game, which I think is a really good change. But these other changes are to do with its interface. As you can see here, we now have a status meter saying empty. And if I pick up the bundle and hover it over an item and left click, we're going to go ahead and put that inside. But now when we look at our bundle, we've got the meter for the amount of items and we can see some of them inside of the bundle. This will show us up to 8 items at a time. Once you start putting more in than that, it's then going to show this plus number at the bottom. And I have noticed things get a bit quirky around here. There you see it. There's 3 items that could be displayed, but we got none. Now what I'm going to do next is hover over the bundle and start to use my mouse wheel. We can see both the item in the bundle and it being selected in the selection area here. I can also use the keys on my hotbar as well to select a different slot. What we then do is right click and pull that selected item outside of the bundle. So let's go down to dirt path. We right click, we pull that out. We can go all the way over to blue ice, pull that one out. Now the next 3 items are podzol, rooted dirt and coarse dirt. If I hover this and right click, we'll pull them out in that order. And just like before, if you're holding the bundle in the world and you right click, all the items get shot out in front of you. Now the bundle still only holds 64 items, but you can also just drop items into it like this while it's sitting there in the inventory. I love that. And as someone who's been a critic of the bundle in the past, I've actually been making use of it when grinding out the trial chambers in 1.21, and it was starting to grow on me. And now that I've seen these changes, I really think they're going to get this right. The thing I'm currently thinking about is shulker boxes. We need some of this functionality on those too. It would be so nice to just scoop some items into the shulker box in your inventory without having to place it down in the world. Anyways, that is all of the experimental changes, which of course are subject to change based on our feedback. Now let's get into the changes that are definitely going to be a part of 1.21.2. We're going to start in the trial chambers, where the chests that would appear between different rooms have been replaced with a hopper and a barrel to make it really clear this is for putting your items in. Beds found in an intersection will now have their colors randomized. The breeze mob no longer has a minimum distance at which to attack the player from, so it could attack you from the other side of a room. There is also a new death message for when a player is killed by the mace's smash attack, and that is smashed by. Yes, xisumavoid was smashed by a Xisuma. And lastly, variations have been added to the hallways, which should add some short challenges leading to a larger chamber. Unfortunately though, I couldn't find these with the trial chambers that I teleported to. Next, we're going to look at some item changes, of which there are many. And these first ones are simply parity changes with Bedrock, which we previously suspected would be coming to Java. You can see here that the name of each of these banner patterns has been renamed. These two now have crafting recipes. This one is the paper and vine, the other one is paper and bricks. Both of these patterns can no longer be accessed in the loom without the use of the banner pattern. Smithing templates have had a name swap. They are now the name of the armor trim that they are. This used to be in the tooltip, now it's been switched, so smithing template is written in the tooltip. Is that one a bug? That one's still called smithing template. The rarity of some type of items have been changed. The golden apple and the end crystal have been downgraded to just common, which is a white name. So here are all of your uncommon items. They're now all labeled yellow. Then we have the rare items, which have that bluish teal color. And lastly, there are only 3 epic items. As it says here on the website, they have re-evaluated the rarity of items and blocks in the game to more accurately reflect the current challenge of obtaining them. And there are some guidelines of which they try to abide by when putting these into those categories. There is also a rule for a crafting recipe inheriting the rarity of the items used in it. So the highest one, like an epic here, will transfer over to the item it crafts. Paintings tooltips have been changed, but only in creative mode. You'll now be able to see the size of the painting, who created it, and the name of the painting. All of that info is in the tooltip. Next up, I'm popping onto the Hermitcraft server to show you our busy bees in our Aztec base. The bees AI or pathfinding is kind of known for being terrible, and oh yeah, I've still got that resource pack on. So here are some things that have improved with the bees. When they exit a nest or hive, they're going to wander for far less time. If it has a nest or hive it calls home, it's going to travel far less away from it, and therefore it's less likely to get lost. They will now spend more time trying to find the nest or hive that they are used to before giving up. They are less likely to get stuck on corners and do derpy spinny things like this. They are also less likely to pathfind to a flower that it can't reach. So in general, the bees are getting better, and speaking of getting better, Hermitcraft just seems to get more amazing every season. I mean, if you haven't been watching, tune in, because this one has been fantastic so far. Seems like a good moment to throw in a subscribe plug, right? If you want to catch future snapshots for 1.21 and 1.22, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Let's get back to the mobs and over to this mountainous terrain, where you can indeed have dark caves that mobs could spawn inside of, and one of those was the bat, which previously would only spawn under Y64, but now it can spawn at any height in the world, provided it's dark enough. To achieve parity with bedrock, wolves can now be fed a diverse diet. This includes cooked and raw seafood from cod to salmon, pufferfish, tropical fish, and they'll even accept some rabbit stew. For those of you that like to customize your game, the shearing of sheep has been moved over to a loot table, so you can define custom drops for all the different colored type of sheep. The same has been done for both variants of the mushroom and even the snow golem, but not the bogged. I think they might have missed that one. Next, we're going to look at something that has the potential to be unbelievably cute. Baby dolphins have been added to the game, and I'm assuming that we get them by right-clicking on the adult. Oh, now we get a swarm. If I hold down right click, I get a swarm of them. Oh, they're so cool. But I'm pretty sure they're just the same model as the adults. Doesn't look like there's any unique details for them. I just discovered that dolphins have moistness. This is what I'm looking for. The baby dolphin has a negative age. So I summoned in this dolphin, and in just a second it will grow into an adult. Now, we weren't provided much more information on where they spawn in the wild and at what age they will have, but they're now a part of the game. Maybe still a work in progress. There are also baby squids. Again, the model is just scaled down, so it's kind of cute, but it also looks like a squid at a distance because it's just smaller. And the other one, of course, is the baby glow squid. Yeah, very cute. The particle effects are much bigger on them though, so it's probably more obvious if they're a baby or not. So hopefully they'll provide a little more information about these new baby mobs in a future snapshot. They also added something similar with the salmon, which they described as small and large variants. And looking at its data here, it has a new tag type small. The previous one was actually labeled medium. Those ones look kind of hefty, don't they? Oh yeah, look at that. That one's large. Of course, they added small and large variants, and medium was the previous one. There you go, there's a large salmon. Not the same as baby mobs, but a really nice little variation to add to the game. Okay, next up, gameplay changes. This first one will be a welcome one, I believe, as these entities and other similar ones that we see here can be destroyed by TNT when it's submerged in water. And now, look at that, they all survive. Yeah, if you've played this game long enough, you've seen that mess with your builds, and it's kind of annoying, but hey, there you go, it's fixed. So in this game, when a zombie is damaged, it has a chance to summon in some reinforcements. But the thing about the zombie is that it has a bunch of variants: the zombie villager, the drowned, the husk, and the zombified piglin. Well, maybe not, but the zombified piglin is included in this change. There are farms that take advantage of the zombie reinforcement mechanic to summon in lots and lots of zombies. But now, as you'll see in this experiment, it's actually specific to the type of zombie that you are damaging. It will spawn in reinforcements of the same variant. This I find rather interesting because zombified piglins drop gold, husks may one day drop sand, fingers crossed. The drowned obviously drop copper, but then zombie villagers, well, maybe this is a way to get a whole bunch of them, then turn them into villagers. Actually, that sounds not like such a great idea. But either way, it's a rather interesting change. The world border has a new feature, which is to absorb projectiles. I thought this thing was going to bounce off of it, but no, it actually just sits on the world border like it's a wall. Previously, these projectiles wouldn't actually collide with the world border. And what's happening here is it's sort of like skidding along the world border once it hits it. Previously, these sorts of projectiles would have actually gone through the world border to the other side. Here's a tiny little change that I really like with the crafting table. You'll now be able to control Q the output, which means throw it out in front of you. So you can craft a whole bunch of stuff and throw it into the world. Now, a triggered raid will no longer start if the raiders cannot find a place to spawn within a reasonable distance of the village they are trying to raid. That to me sort of sounds like another nerf for raid farms. I could be mistaken, and it's not really my wheelhouse in which to test, so we'll have to keep our ears on the community for that one. Next up, some gameplay optimizations. There is a new feature inside of video settings. It is this reduce FPS when AFK. There are two settings here. You can switch it to reduce FPS when minimized to. That will limit your frame rate down to 10 FPS if the window is minimized. And if you leave the game unattended for a minute, it will reduce the frame rate to 30, and then after another 9 minutes, it will reduce it to 10. It also says here that the tick rate performance has been improved when using higher render distances. If you run a server, there is this new pause when empty seconds option that allows you to pause the game if no one's logged into the world for, let's say, 60 seconds. The timing of nether portals has been optimized too. Minecarts and boats only need half a second to go back through a portal. The previous default cooldown time was 15 seconds. This is the same amount of time for ender pearls and arrows, which now only need 2 ticks to reset their cooldown, so they can go in and come pretty much straight back out. Next up, some changes with models and rendering. You see this shield that I got here? It's enchanted, and the amount of glint on it now matches that of my armor chestplate. You may have noticed it earlier, but the redstone torch was given a new look. This is both a texture in the inventory and a model. And I've got to say, I didn't think this needed changing, but I actually think it looks way better than the old one. There's also something kind of funky about this red glow around the outside, but it's like a visual trick that's really satisfying. Yeah, I think the cube around the pixels in the middle are rendered behind it. That is really cool. Now, also in this snapshot, they added an emissive layer for block models. This is something that relates to shaders in the Minecraft game. My friend Ewan sent me this pack that takes advantage of it, and I'll leave a link to it in the description box down below. So these ores look pretty normal, but let's see what happens when we place them in the world. What's going on here? This looks completely normal. Well, this all relates to light levels. So let's go ahead and run a tick sprint. You can see we're accelerating into the night, and now there is this luminosity to the rendering of these ores. This becomes really impressive when you look underground. You can see the ores are absolutely popping out here. It's almost like they're glowing, and this is a very cool feature. So yeah, if you want to use this yourself in this snapshot, then there is a link to the resource pack in the description box below. Other minor changes include item components to make them repairable or enchantable. There appears to be some new variability around the explosive power of TNT, but currently this only seems to work for TNT minecarts. I'm hoping to look into that a little bit further and then cover it in the next one, because I've covered everything else and I'm going to put a wrap on this one now. There's quite an exciting snapshot, absolutely tons of stuff in it. Let me know what you thought of it with a comment down below, leave a like to support the channel, and come back next week because of course if we get another snapshot, I'll be covering it here on this channel. Thanks for watching, bye bye.